Hey you guys, let's make soft sourdough sandwich bread. This is so delicious. We always have it in the house. We can't eat other bread. We've always liked sourdough bread, but it kind of is just like a giant crouton. Like it gets really hard and crusty. So we always have this in the house, like I said, and it's super easy to make. So I want to show you how to make it. First thing, obviously, is a fed starter. This one is very active right now. This is 300 grams going in. And it really helps to have a rubber spatula to scrape the sides. I usually don't get every single bit of it, and then what I'll do is just rinse it out with water and then pour that in the compost, kind of swish it around and then pour that in the compost. And you get all those beneficial bacteria in your compost. This is 50 grams of oil. This is how you get that soft sourdough bread. So you just need fat. I do have a recipe with milk that I do sometimes. It honestly doesn't taste any different. I will put that down in the description below. Today I'm using coconut oil. And you don't taste the coconut. Sometimes we use olive oil. You really can use any oil. And I hear you can use non-dairy milks as well, but I've not tried that. So just any fat. This is 1,000 grams of just all-purpose flour. A lot of times we like to use bread flour. It might make it a little bit fluffier, but all-purpose flour is totally fine. A lot of people like to use wheat flour or rye flour because they say it adds like another dimension of flavor, but we don't really like to. We like a nice white bread. 1,000 grams, and this recipe is for 2 loaves, but I will post different measurements just for 1 loaf down in the description if you just want to make 1 loaf. This is 22 grams of pink salt. Most people only do 20 grams, which is 2%, but we find that that's not quite enough, so we use 22. But if you're sensitive to salt or anything, like I said, most people just use 20 grams. And then this is 680 grams of water going in. And then I'm just gonna mix this up really nice until there's 0 dry flour. And I'm gonna throw on this wet towel and let it sit for 30 minutes, and then I'll come back. I do wanna say one thing, do not use a terry cloth, which is like that cotton with the little strings coming out kind of, because if your dough touches that, it will most likely stick and you'll get that cotton in your dough and it's so hard to get out. So I'm gonna get this all mixed up, get my hands dirty, and I'll be back in 30 minutes. Alright guys, it's about 30 minutes after I first mixed this dough, and what we're gonna do now is our first round of stretch and folds. So basically what this does is just strengthens the gluten structure and kinda just gives you a fluffy bread somehow. I'm not sure, I'm not a scientist, but it helps. So basically a stretch and fold, you're just gonna dig your hand under the whole bit of dough. And it does help to have like warm water next to you so the dough doesn't stick too much, but I don't have that. Stick your hand under, pull the whole thing up, and put it back down. And we're gonna do this until it's not really stretchy anymore. And it's gonna be way stretchier the first time, and then we'll come back the second time and the third time, and it'll get way stronger because the gluten's getting stronger. And you don't want to rip it because that doesn't strengthen the gluten, it just rips it. So usually go around the bowl the first time, maybe like 2 or 3 times, and then the second few times I only go around 1 time. So you can see it's getting a lot stronger. I can't really pull it as much. So I'm gonna call that about good. I'm gonna throw my towel back on here, and then I'm gonna come back in about 30 minutes and do this again. And we're gonna do 3 stretch and folds in the next like 2 hours about 30 minutes apart. All right guys, it is 30-ish minutes later and it's time for another round of stretch and folds. So your dough is gonna be way stronger this time and way harder to pull up, but that is good, that's what we want. So usually the second time I usually go around the bowl just about once and call it good, that's really it. So we'll see you in another 30-ish minutes. All right, you guys, I just did my last stretch and fold. Here's what the dough looks like. So now it's time for the bulk ferment. So what you're gonna do is leave this out at room temperature for about 2 hours until it gets nice, a little bit bigger and nice and bubbly. And I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later in the video. Or you could cover it up and put it in the fridge for up to 4 days, which is what I'm gonna do because I'm gonna go to bed soon. But just make sure that your towel stays nice and moist or else your bread dough will dry out. So I'll see you guys in a couple days. Hey guys, it is 2 days later now. I pulled my dough out of the fridge maybe just like 40 minutes ago, and it is done with the bulk fermentation and ready for shaping. Now before I pull you down here and show you exactly what that looks like, there's a couple ways to tell. I just kind of want to say that so you can put your dough in the fridge at any time through this whole process. Sourdough is a completely individualized process. The refrigerator just kind of slows it down, but it depends on so many things, how long each step takes, like temperature, what you fed your starter, how much, and probably many more variables that I don't even know. But you really just want to know what the dough is supposed to look like and feel like before you move on to each step. Don't follow anybody else's timing for sourdough because like I said, it's a completely individualized experience. So the bulk fermentation's over, so I'm gonna pull you down here and show you what it looks like. Okay, so it's risen quite a bit, maybe not completely doubled, but it has definitely risen. You can tell there's bubbles, kind of. This is a textured bowl, so it's kind of hard to see, but it's definitely very bubbly. And you can see some bubbles on the top as well. Some of these are bumps, but there's definitely some bubbles in here. It's less sticky. Like as before, it would kind of stick to you if you touched it, but now it doesn't stick to you. Don't worry, my hands are clean. And it's kind of tacky, like silly putty more. And there's this test called the window pane test. So you just grab a chunk basically and pull it up. And I'm not sure exactly why this is good, but if you can see through it, it's ready. So you could tell, and I'm ripping it a little bit now, but I just did the window pane test and it was good. And it's not bad to rip it, but you can see through the dough if you pull it. So this is ready for shaping, so let's go ahead and shape these loaves up. Okay, I have a clean and floured counter here and extra flour here for my hands and for the dough. And my bench scraper helps a lot, and I'm just gonna scoop this out onto the counter. It comes out pretty easily, but a bench scraper or a spatula definitely helps. And I like to use a lot of flour because it's less sticky than before, but it is still a very sticky dough. Don't use too much flour though, because you don't want the bread to be super floury. But just gonna kind of flatten this out a little bit. And then I always just guesstimate half because remember this, this recipe that I made is for 2 loaves, but you can totally measure it out. So I'm just gonna cut it in half. And there's really not much of a science to this. A lot of people really like to overcomplicate it and tell you exactly how to shape your loaf. But there's really not much of a science. The idea is you kind of just want to make it nice and tight with, and just sealed up really. So Get a little more flour. And what I do most of the time, just fold it in half, fold it in half again, and kind of just roll it up. Another reason you don't want a lot of flour is because you want the dough to still stick to itself. So roll it like a burrito, and then I tend to just squeeze the ends to stitch it up. And that's pretty much done. So I'm just gonna throw it stitch side down into my bread pan with parchment paper in there. You can use cooking spray, but don't use metal unless it's stainless steel. So I'm just gonna kind of push it down a little bit just so it's even. And then this is ready for proofing. And I just proof it in there. I don't use a banneton or anything fancy. But I'm gonna shape this and then I will come back and show you when these are ready to put in the oven. All right, you guys, it's been about an hour and a half since I shaped these bread doughs and they are done proofing. So let me pull you down here and show you exactly what that looks like. So they have clearly risen a little bit, maybe not doubled, but they have risen. You kind of got some more bubbles back because when we put it in, we pushed it down and pushed some of the bubbles out, and some of them are back. So we're gonna do the poke test. We are going to flour a spot and poke it about this far down, about to your first knuckle. So let me make sure you can see this. Poke it all the way down. And you're gonna get an initial small spring back to maybe about like a third of the hole. And it is just gonna take forever to fill in. You can see where I've tested it before and it has just not come back all the way. It is super, super slow. So we'll do another one right now. And you're gonna feel some air in the dough. If it's super dense, then it's not ready. And if it springs back immediately, then it's also not ready. If it feels like it's about to deflate, and if it just doesn't spring back whatsoever, that initial first spring back, then it's been too long. So I hope that helps you know when the proofing is done. And let's get ready to get these in the oven. Okay. We need to score the bread to make sure that it doesn't explode basically because air needs to get out. So grab yourself a bread lawn or a sharp knife, or I just use this thing that goes on the bread lawn because I don't really like those bread lawn things. And if you are a child, then grab yourself an adult with a sharp utensil, and also good on you for learning how to make bread. But if you want to make this a little bit easier, you can stick it in the refrigerator for about an hour so it gets cold and it's way easier to slice. But we're just gonna go for it. I'll bring you down here, and there is no science to this. You can do fancy slices and make designs and things, but you just gotta slice it. So. The deeper the slice, kind of the more open it will be, obviously. I'll do a different one on this one so you can see. I'll do like an S. And you can see it's definitely kind of tough when the dough is warm, but that is all good. All right. Okay. These two loaves are going in a 450 degree Fahrenheit, 232.2 degrees Celsius oven. Does not have to be exact. 450 Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. Under them, on the oven rack under them, I'm putting this cookie sheet with ice just because I don't want to spill water. Obviously, it's going to melt almost immediately. This is to steam them as opposed to like a Dutch oven. And so after 25 minutes, we're gonna take the steam out and turn the oven down to 350 Fahrenheit, which is 176.6 degrees Celsius. And just how you would take your lid off the Dutch oven, it's done steaming. 450 Fahrenheit for 25 minutes, and then 350 for about 25 minutes. We're looking for the bread to get to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 93.3 Celsius. And it is important for bread to be baked all the way because flour is a raw ingredient, and it's also kind of gross if you don't bake it all the way. Alright you guys, I just completed the hardest part of this entire bread making process, waiting to cut these open. I pulled these out and cooled them. It's been about 40 minutes. I would recommend at least 30 minutes. You're gonna hear a different time from every single baker, but I would say at least 30 minutes at the very least. They just need to cool down all the way, and all the steam needs to be released at the proper timing. But here are the loaves. This is the one with the deep straight cut, and this is the one that we did that S cut on. Looking real nice. So let's cut these open. All right. All right. That is the straight cut one. And we'll cut this one open too. Looks about the same. Nice and spongy and soft. All right, I'm definitely gonna have to have a slice of one of these. I think you're crazy if you don't have a slice of your fresh made bread. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you make the best bread. Please comment down below with any questions you have. No question is stupid. But once you get this recipe down, it really is easy. I will put down in the description the recipes with the oil and the milk, and 1 loaf and 2 loaf recipes, and I also will try to convert the measurements to volume rather than weight. But I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching.